Hi, it's Steve. So, who doesn't like red onions, particularly pickled red onions? Um, I've got a small gang here, about 10 pounds or so. They're starting to get ahead of themselves and by either growing or getting a little too soft. So, before they get much further along in this aging process, we are going to transform them into pickled onions. We'll get right at it. So first thing first, we have to get these guys all out of their skins so we can inspect them and look at them and make a triage, I suppose you could say. To see if there's any that are like a little too soft or a little too much mm, green growing on them, or if they're just bad. I'm not going to look at that one. This guy is much better because when they go bad, they've got a certain smell about them, and it's just like, ugh, you know. But in the end, even having to go through all of this work, this guy is perfectly fine. Uh, Once they're all pickled up, you forget all about this. And if you could have them everywhere and anywhere. Like they're good with just as a side, just to liven up a side dish, or thrown on your hamburgers or your hot dogs, or just open up the jar and take a couple of mouthfuls like that. I would have them right on my nightstand table, the table beside the bed, but I'm not allowed. So I have to make do with what I got. And I think we'll just be happy with having some of these on the shelves and maybe a few in the a few jars in the fridge, always on the standby. Well, once they're pickled, they don't really, until the jar's opened. You don't need to have they don't need to be refrigerated. You know? Anyways, I won't make you guys again suffer through this chopping and peeling business. I'll get the big gang of them done. Big gang, little gang. And that will be that. And I'll rejoin you at the next step. All right. All right. So we've got all the ends chopped off of these guys and all the skins peeled off. There was a couple of bad ones that had to get pitched, and that's okay. That's all part of the fun. Um, So next is to chop these, as it's recommended, into about a 1/4 inch slices, thin. Um, you can do it by eyeball with a knife if you're that good. Good for you. If not, if you're not familiar with this device, this piece of machinery, it's called a mandolin. It deserves just as much respect as a pair of toenail clippers or the chainsaw. Okay, it is very, very dangerous if not used properly. It will flay you quicker than you think, and it will hurt. So do take every precaution with this thing. They give you one of these little scraper doo-doo things to push down, because under here is a tremendously sharp blade. You could probably shave with it. Okay, so just so we can see what we're doing here, we'll put this on like that. And then we just start sliding it down, making our slices. And it does a really good job, usually. Okay. And put that on. So if you happen to run your knuckles over that, that's okay. If you happen to run your knuckles over that thing, you'll know it. Very, very, very unforgiving. Like, it's just not even worth taking the chance to do it. And it works really smooth. Sometimes you get these big hairy things, but that's okay. They'll all go in and get pickled anyways. But for the most part, what happens is you get these fantastic rings. You just have to play with them a little bit. But look at that now. Imagine all of these guys. They're just the right length, just the right thickness, because these things are adjustable as well for their thickness. So we'll put another one on. We'll get them started. Sometimes they work out better than others, but anyways, we got a whole bunch of nice 1/4-inch rings. Anyways, I'll finish up doing these guys and then I'll be back with you in a minute. Okay, so after having sliced up and chopped up all of these onions, and they're really, really super pretty, as you can see, the recipe in the book itself calls for 10 cups of sliced onions like this. So I've got about 2.5 times that much. And then as per the recipe, it calls for a liter of red wine vinegar. And that's my entire stock of red wine vinegar, so we're gonna have to get more. And so with that in mind, 2.5 times, I'm gonna use an additional 1.5 liters of apple cider vinegar. It's going to do the same thing, but the flavor profile will change just a little bit. They also say to put in a clove of garlic for the 1-part recipe. So I'll get boiling up the brine, and because it's going to take a minute, it has to, assume the flavor with the garlic and this and that, and then simmer and bubble and boil for a minute. And then the onions go in and they boil for another 5 minutes. And then from there, we're going to put them all into jars, those single serving portion jars, the 250s. From there, they'll go into the water bath canner. I was too lazy to go and get out our water bath canner, so I'm just going to use our pressure canner that we can use anyways as a water bath canner. We just don't have to tighten down the lid and put the thing on. We just put the lid on gently and let it boil. So I will get busy pouring in all of our vinegar, making our brine. I'll let everything cook and bubble and boil, and I'll come back once we start loading some of the muck into the jars. All right? So I don't really want to taste this because it's just all vinegar. And I don't want to taste it to see if the garlic flavor is infused because it's going to be mighty, mighty powerful. We'll assume that the garlic taste is infused. So in go the onions ever so gently. All right. Everybody in. Oh, the thing about the apple cider vinegar too is you can make your own apple cider vinegar, which is great and good fun and everything, but you should save that more for like salad dressings or your hair rinses or switchels and things like that, because you don't know what the actual acidic acid level is in there. When you get the store-bought stuff, you know that you're guaranteed that 5%, so otherwise, if you're using homemade stuff, you don't know what you're getting. And it's the same thing for lemon juice. You can squeeze lemons. It'll be acidic, yes, but you don't know what that level of acidity is. So you're better off to get the bottle of store-bought lemon juice where it is guaranteed whatever percentage, like there's always that guarantee as to what it is. It's regulated. So I will let this boil now for a little bit, for 5 minutes, and we'll be back in just a moment once it's done its thing, and I'll start filling up the jars a little bit, okay? All right, so here everybody's done cooking and down to is what they need to do to have all the proper flavors infused, and they turn out to be this fantastic, like almost bubblegum pink color. Just so you know, I'm only going to do a few jars. I can pick the garlic out if we want. But so if you want to, you can turn this into a sweet deal too. You can put a little bit of sugar in it or any other flavorings that you would feel you would want to have. I'm gonna get a stabber. There we are. Like peppercorns or mustard seeds or whatever other things you can think of that you might possibly want to have your pickled onions taste like. You know, these guys too. We're only going to do to. It says a generous half-inch of headspace. After that, we'll put them in the pot of water there for 10 minutes, I believe it is. It doesn't matter. I'll check in a moment. But they'll water bath can there, and then they'll sit for a few minutes to gather their thoughts, I guess, and then we'll pull them out. And when I'll come back when I'm pulling them out. The thing about these little jars like this, these single serving jars, is it doesn't take much to fill them. So you always wind up having extra, but it's always good to have a whole bunch of extra pots just in case. So we're gonna fill up these jars and then we'll top them off with their juice, throw them in the boiler or in the canning, and I'll be back when I take them out and you'll be able to see the color of these things. All right, that's that. All right, so after having filled these jars up, and look at the fantastic color of that. Isn't that nice? It almost looks like watermelon, but it's not. And it's tasty. So I did jam everything down to the best of my ability. And then I got in my handy dandy poker jabber thing here and got the air out. And as usual, we're going to clean up the lids, or the rims rather, with a little bit of vinegar on a piece of paper towel or a rag of some sort. And just to make sure there's no stickiness or little bits and pieces of, in this case, onion. And that was that. So we had enough for 13 jars, 13 little single serving jars for all of that. As I said, I packed it in really, really tight. I think, no, we're okay. It was just, see, that's why you do this. So you can feel the imperfections and you can see the stringers that are kind of, that's the kind of thing that can screw up a whole batch. Just something as simple as that. Out. Okay. Also too, if you don't know, if you have no idea about any of this as well, in the canner itself, it's a good idea to put a splash of vinegar in it. Like, so if you're hot bath canning or pressure canning, it doesn't matter, because if you have hard water, like lots of minerals, calcium in that, if you don't put a little splash of vinegar in, it leaves like this white film, this crusty white film on everything, and it makes it a lot harder to clean up your jars afterwards. So that's that. All right, now I have to find my lids. Vinegar is done. These are here, and these lids are cleaned up. They're not just coming out of the box or whatever. When they come out of the box, sometimes they have a funky smell to them, like that factory, I don't know what it's called, factory funk. Anyways, this is my pressure canner. It is heating up. It's not boiling, but it's, I'll say, roughly about the same temperature as these things. So haste is of importance right now. I want to get it in there before it starts to boil. Now I need a bunch of lids. On and tight. Just tight to say. That's it. Right? same thing. I like the way these guys turned out. The color of them is really super fantastic. Now, these guys are going to have to go in there for 10 minutes. We have to wait until it starts actually boiling, like a good boil, not just seeing a few little bubbles, for 10 minutes. There, more stuff to wash after. And we'll let it sit for 5 minutes just so it can come down a little bit. And then we take them out, let them sit for overnight, because, well, overnight, or they say 12 hours or so anyways. So these guys are all ready. They're gonna go into the bath. I'm not going to be putting the lid on super tight on this. I'm just going to place the lid on so it can still breathe and vent, because I do not want to pressure can these. And that water is heating up nicely. Okay. And there, and look at that. I think that's going to be just perfect. Okay, so now we're going to let this guy do its thing. We'll get this here, and I'll come back when this is all done and finished, and I'm going to pull them out of the machine here. All right. So we had some technical difficulties yesterday, mainly being my twitchy nerves and a big fat stupid thumb that pushed the button twice while recording the unveiling of the pickled red onions. So we don't get to see them in all of their full glory coming out of the water. But needless to say, or without saying, or both, they turned out really fantastically. It's again one of those things that's not super hard to do, and again, now they're just going to be good for a much longer time, even if you can't have them on your nightstand table. Anyways, that's it. Until next time, thank you. I appreciate your time and your patience.